there was obviously a lot that happened over the weekend. And surely we'll talk about it once we get into the main episode. But right now, I really did want to take some time to highlight an event that sort of, it was related, certainly, but it really flew under the radar of, just like very bad things happening.
Okay.
And this involves a journalist, Terry Moran. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, he was the guy that interviewed Donald Trump kind of fecklessly.
Yeah.
And didn't really press him as hard as we thought he would. And he, in the words of conservatives, really went off the rails this week, releasing a statement on Twitter condemning Stephen Miller. And this one, it's a fiery condemnation, folks.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to read it for you so that you know what the kind of evil that we're engaging with.
Of course.
Quote, "The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred is only a means to an end, and that end is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment."
He cooked. That was crazy.
What a vile rebuke of what is going on, but also the people who are behind what is going on.
Type shit you'd hear on Hiddo.
Exactly. Honestly, I don't think I'd put my name behind that. Maybe he's going a little bit too far. Because that's certainly what people like J.D. Vance thought when he responded to this tweet saying, "An ABC journalist, Terry Moran, posted this absolutely vile smear of Stephen Miller. It's dripping with hatred. Remember that every time you watch ABC's coverage of the Trump administration." Brother, that tweet is dripping with hatred. He called Stephen Miller a world-class hater. That's it. That's some shit that I said in like middle school.
Yeah, that's not even that bad. And he's a journalist. He can say that kind of stuff.
In his own personal capacity, too.
Yeah. He's not like publishing that.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. What about all these fucking opinion columnists on Breitbart and Fox News and blah, blah, blah? What about the shit that they directly say on Fox News?
I was going to say, like, Fox News calls them like groomers and pedophiles all the time, the Democrats.
Yes.
Like, that's fine, though?
Like, we're not fighting on equal footing here. And then Stephen Miller got in the fray himself, and he said, "The most important fact about Terry's full public meltdown is what it shows about the corporate press in America. For decades, the privileged anchors and reporters narrating and gatekeeping our society have been radicals adopting a journalist's pose. Terry pulled off his mask."
Gatekeeping our society, what does that even mean in the context of, like, right-wing ideology?
Journalist has opinions? Oh.
Yeah. God forbid,
The whole post right there is journalist has opinions that I don't like. Terry Moran was suspended from ABC because of that tweet.
That is insane for ABC to do.
That's the worst part about this. And ABC is also the company that dropped the lawsuit against Trump, right?
Yeah. What was it?
No,
they settled.
They settled with Trump.
Because Trump was claiming defamation or something because they correctly reported the E. Jean Carroll case stuff.
Yeah, something about it. Yeah. Trump was claiming defamation for something that clearly wasn't defamation. Trump won the presidency and ABC immediately settled. Like ABC already capitulated once. They've been known to capitulate this administration. Now they're firing a guy for calling somebody a hater.
Yeah, like you got to stand up to these people, man.
He didn't even like swear. Like that's your journalist, dog. And if you're worried about this being the instance where the mainstream, the regular American public starts to think that ABC News could possibly be biased in any way towards the Democrats, you're lost.
Yeah.
You're fundamentally lost if you think that's like unacceptable for a journalist to be saying.
Yeah, and like why can't a journalist just like call it like they see it in their own personal capacity even? Like I would get it if he was like posting a bunch of opinion in an article or like a video or whatever that's supposed to be just reporting the news. I get if they'd have a contention with that, but they're clearly firing him just because he had something bad to say about Stephen Miller.
Exactly.
Like something a little bit more forceful than ABC would like.
Like barely even something bad to say about Trump. Like nobody knows who Stephen Miller is. Nobody is seeing that tweet. The median voter is not going to look at that and be like, "Oh, I told you ABC's biased."
No, it's fully like the Streisand effect thing, right? Like once you deplatform or try to like silence something, it just gains more notoriety.
Yeah.
That's what, like, I probably wouldn't have even heard about this tweet otherwise.
No, absolutely not.
It was only because he got fired.
It's absolutely appalling that ABC would suspend Homeboy over this. Fox News pushes literal lies. Fox News got sued for lying about the Dominion voting machines. Tucker Carlson, it was leaked that he hates Trump. He despises him. Yet every single night he got on there and, glazed a little bit.
Yeah. As we'll talk about when we get into this, like, LA protest news, the fascist has no principles.
Yeah.
Their principles bend based off what is advantageous for the fascist political program. They don't believe in a free press. They believe in a free press, or they'll pretend to believe in free speech when it suits them. And when it doesn't, they'll advocate for somebody like Terry Moran getting fired because he had something bad to say about a White House staffer.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's also like when we talk about the LA protests, we'll be talking about how this is just very bad. This is kind of the extent of like the white supremacist project. This is what things lead to, and things will get worse if they're allowed to continue. And I feel like this is just an example of how fragile of egos these guys have.
Yes.
These guys are out here talking about might is right. We're the goddamn master race. We need to kick all of the brown people out of the country because we're so good and they're so bad. Yet they can't even handle a slightly mean tweet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Trump's FCC, I think FCC is the one that regulates like broadcasts, right? Yeah. Trump's FCC, which nominally the FCC is supposed to be like sort of independent, kind of like the Federal Reserve, although we know in actuality, of course, the president can pressure anybody he wants. But the FCC has been actively going after groups like ABC, CBS, and stuff like that. And they're the ones that issue broadcasting licenses, and they're trying to revoke them unless they start talking good about Trump. So I can understand why ABC is like scared, but like if people individually or if groups individually start backing down, it's going to make it harder for people to come together and stand up against him. It's a collective action problem, and ABC, one of the biggest publications, can't fire someone just for being like mildly against Stephen Miller of all people.
Yes. Just what is to like the general public a nobody in the administration?
Yeah.
Like come on, man.
A Goebbels.
Goebbels, really?
Like it's come on. Like you gotta try at least a little bit harder.
Just push back an ounce.
Yeah, just a little bit would be nice. Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. It's Monday, June 9th. We're here bringing you another episode. We're doing Riot Talk.
Riot Talk.
Just kidding.
LA is gone. LA wiped off the map.
Just like
California soon to break off the country and float into the sea with all the chaos over there.
Just like Portland.
So much protest movement, so many violent paid agitators showing up in California. They've broke the state off the continent.
That's right. It's genuinely over now.
The San Andreas Fault.
We're not going to be talking about riot. Of course, we're going to be rejecting that narrative spin because it's clearly not riots, but we will be talking about flags only. Why would you not fly an American flag at a protest? We won't be doing that either. We'll get to the LA protest stuff, though. We also got to talk about the travel ban today, which goes into effect today at the time of recording. We also got some other news in here to talk about. Some actually good news, sort of.
Yeah, for once.
Some like semi-good news. Of course, we'll get to all of it. But before we get into the news here, if you want to support the show, go over to Patreon. Early access to all of our content, commercial-free. We'd love you for it.
We'd love you for it. You could also go, if you don't want to support us, but you want to support a broader movement, maybe. It is Pride Month. You can go over to headintheoffice.com, buy the Pride logo sticker and or magnet.
That's right.
Heavy on the and. You know what I'm saying? All proceeds go to the Trevor Project.
That's right. We're very excited about that. We've had about, we announced it last week, going for the full month of June until the last day of June 30th.
Yes. Because Pride is over.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and we're taking away the rainbow logo. We're going to pretend like it didn't happen. But I think we've had like 30 people or so already tune into it, so that's pretty cool. At least like 30 sales of the things that we're selling. So we've made some money that we will donate when we get it.
Yes,
and that's very exciting for us.
That's
very exciting for you. And if you want to participate through the whole month of June, link is in the description, headintheoffice.com. You can also join our Discord. You can follow us on all the socials that are in the description.
Yes,
and if you really want to support the show.
The final and most enduring way to support this show and our operations is to leave a 5-star review. Typically on Apple, but
we don't have any Apple today.
Once again this week we have 0 Apple
My people are telling me, our producers are telling us that we don't have any Apple reviews, and I think I might have to fire one of them for telling us that.
We might have to cut the show off this week. It might be over right now.
God damn it, dude.
You can't expect me to keep
the woke left.
Like a high energy performance, deliver the news as your favorite tertiary source throughout these trying times, when I don't even have like a little treat myself.
But in the same way that hatred is Stephen Miller's nourishment,
yes,
5-star reviews on Apple are my nourishment.
It's my spiritual nourishment.
And if I don't get that, how can I work?
Yeah.
leftists.
You guys don't understand
anyway,
fundamentally anything, but we do have some reviews that came through on Instagram and on TikTok because not everybody has Apple.
Whatever, bro. Like, who cares?
Whatever. Some of you listen on Spotify. And this first one from Aiden wanted to put in a 5-star review. I'd like to start by wishing a happy Pride Month to the Hiddo community and with a lengthy but highly necessary list of condemnations. Hamas, political violence, Hakeem Jeffries, Alyssa Slotkin, focus groups, apartheid states, other podcasts. Heavy on that last part.
I did huge on that last part.
Huge on that last
Enormous
part. Very
last part.
big on that. Moving on, I have somehow been granted the distinct honor of being a constituent of the greatest liberal in American history, Chris Van Hollen. As if this weren't enough to be happy about, I'm blessed enough to spend my days allowing these two wonderful chaps to grace my ears with their pure, unbridled wisdom. Listening to this podcast is my favorite thing to do while sitting around at home so that I can leech the resources out of Medicaid. Silver linings are important to find in times like these. And my friends, you are the lining. Thank you for all you do. I wish you all the best. Here's to waste, fraud, and abuse.
Hell yeah,
Shout
brother.
out waste, fraud, and abuse.
It's my human right to be waste, fraud, and abuseful. This next one here from Snorlax on TikTok. I condemn Hamas and all political violence. 2-year listener, 3rd-time reviewer. This pod is a must listen. As we pass Trump's first 100 days, felt like 100 years. Yeah. God, this is taking forever. Yeah. We have seen unimaginable damage to our democracy, human rights trampled off the back, or xenophobia, and our economy forever scarred by pure stupidity. But I would argue that the worst of it all is seeing grown adults glaze Trump day in and day out with such gleefulness. These people put P-stars, I'm guessing porn stars is the intent here, to shame with the amount of meat riding we're witnessing. They're even doing tricks on it like they're playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's embarrassing and disturbing to watch. Get this filth out of my country. But in all seriousness, thanks, Hiddo, for never switching up and being grifters. Keep doing the Lord's work. P.S. These two have never influenced my political views by any stretch of the means, if anyone is watching.
Heavy on that if Kash Patel is listening.
Huge.
Heavy on that.
And Kash Patel listens.
He does
I know
listen.
he does.
He must. Yeah.
Drop the Epstein files.
I was going to say, did you see him on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Buddy, what a cornball. He was just talking about like, oh no, I'd know if he was there. And then the news broke that like Elon Musk said he was in the Epstein files. Kash Patel said, that's just not my wheelhouse. I can't comment on that one. But he knows.
Man.
But he has intimate knowledge of who's in those files.
It's going to be crazy to see all the Republicans rationalize them not actually releasing the files.
Yeah.
Because I have no hope that like the 30% of people that are solidly Trump in this country would ever switch up, even if they pretend to care about the Epstein files.
Oh, absolutely not. Because how do we know Trump wasn't actually the real CIA agent and he was just in there infiltrating, and that's how they built the case against him?
The cope I've been seeing is that Trump is in the Epstein files, but like he didn't do anything wrong though. Like a lot of people's names were in there, Yeah,
he just went to Little St. James for business.
Exactly.
For business. There was like a business wing that he stopped at and chilled at. I did think it was funny how Alan Dershowitz took the moment to say, pardon Ghislaine Maxwell.
What a cause to die for. This dude's got all the wrong takes.
That's what I'm saying. The Dersh, man. He's good. This next review and last review from Myth. Hey, big fan in the pod and just wanted to write a review. Been thinking about joining the Patreon for a while, and I'll do so if you read this out on the show.
Oh my God, it's over.
Bag secured, baby. Bag secured. That's what we're about. This is a bag getting podcast. First and foremost,
I love money.
I love money. I would like to condemn Hamas on all forms of political violence, especially for Hiddo, who pack quite the political punch. Being a 19-year-old Canadian university student with a placement within bond trading in the fall. If you ever need help understanding the 10-year, you know your guy. Most wouldn't expect someone like me to be as obsessed with this podcast as I am, but Gage and Jeremy do a fantastic job breaking down the constant shithousery going on down south in both a gripping and humorous tone.
True.
It's helped me realize that the reality of our modern day failures to distribute wealth properly, especially with rent seeking, and how it's stifling any tangible, real economic progress, something that most people in my industry tend to ignore. If you think the media has been sane washing Trump, the constant dismissal I got from the industry professionals regarding Trump's tariffs pre-Liberation Day might have made you go insane. Hiddo feels like a refuge for sanity for me in a finance world that seems unbound by reality and constantly running on the fumes of its own bullshit. Keep up the good stuff. Brother's trying to change the system from within.
Appreciate it. Some people got to try to do that.
Maybe you should come over here and infiltrate the Fed in like 30 years.
And then slide us some Federal Reserve
and
money.
Then slide me low interest rates.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everyone else gets high interest rates. I get low interest rates. And by comparison, money's free.
Well, I mean, realistically, like if you did have a policy where like one guy got low interest rates and everybody else had to pay for it, nobody else would be able to even tell that their interest rates went up.
Exactly.
If it was just mine that were low.
Wouldn't even affect it, really.
That's how government should be run.
Exactly. Run by me and for me. Anyways, it's time to get into the news on the LA protests because there's been a lot happening over the last few days since we recorded last. Last we recorded, the biggest news was the Elon Musk and Trump breakup.
By far the biggest.
And then immediately after that, it was just overshadowed by these LA protests.
The Elon Trump breakup feels like it happened last year.
Yeah.
It feels so far and away, so disconnected from like the political reality that we're living in right now. So many escalations.
Yeah, and if you are if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know how we're going to deal with this. We're going to give you the facts.
Yes.
We're going to tell you what happened. We're going to get into what the status of the protests are right now, and then we'll break down the narratives and the optics because that's what we do here. And there's a couple of issues that I hate talking about the discourse of, right? It's like the meta narratives that form around this thing. Like trans people participating in sports is one of these things.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we don't talk about like the issue itself. We talk about how we talk about the issue. And that's what's happening for protests right now. Anytime big protests break out, this happened in 2020 as well, we start talking about how we should talk about the protest rather than just talking about like why the protests are happening. And then we get stupid shit like flag discourse.
Oh my God,
which is just
man.
really annoying to deal with.
Because it's like, I mean, I don't know if we have this in here later, but
I was
going
to
to
talk about the flags, later on. But
there are a billion videos that circulate around Twitter on like Saturday morning, Friday night that were just of the one car that got lit on fire, and people are just pretending that the whole entire city's been bombed.
Yeah.
It's stupid, and that's like it just distracts us from actually looking at why people are protesting. ICE just busting up in military fatigues and raiding Home Depots, and makes us focus on, well, actually protest is good, but maybe you shouldn't be doing protest in like this violent way, and actually the violence takes away from the message of the protest, and violence begets violence, and maybe Trump had to send to the National Guard. Let's think about how other people will think about these things, and it's so dumb.
You're not winning over the median voter with this image.
No.
All right, well,
in fact, I'll remind you, in 2020, the median voter was won over by Minneapolis burning to the ground.
It's true.
The median voter fucked with the BLM protests.
Yeah.
Because we were constantly focused on the message of the BLM protests, and we didn't let the right-wing narrative penetrate until like after Joe Biden won.
To my mind, the folly of the BLM protests was that we trusted the Democrats to follow through after they won.
Yes.
And they didn't in any real meaningful way.
It feels like right now we're kind of failing to get off the ground, at least in terms of like a national message, a response from the Democrats. I think regular people and commentators and like independent media figures are actually talking about the real meat and potatoes of the issue.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, Sunday night, I don't know if this has changed. Sunday night or Sunday morning, I looked on Hakeem Jeffries' Twitter and saw nothing. And I think that tells me all I need to know. Yeah,
it's not great seeing our Democratic leaders perform worse than like local news reporters.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to either yesterday or this morning or something like that. There was an interview that was being conducted by local LA News with the LA police chief. And the LA News guy was like, do you worry that ICE acting this way or federal agents acting this way makes the relationship between the LA police and the LA community worse? And the LA police chief was like, that's a good question. Yes. Like they are making our relationship with the public actively worse. And Democrats need to be hammering home on that. I know Gavin Newsom has been doing some stuff, but like Gavin Newsom sucks and he's not the one I want to see scoring points against Donald Trump because I think that portends doom.
Well, exactly. I mean, outside of the obvious inhumanity and depravity and draconian crackdown that Donald Trump has engaged in and all the bad things that come with that, violating people's rights, the insanely horrible way that we treat immigrants in this country. I think the worst part about all of this going on is that this is going to boost Gavin Newsom's chances in 2028. People will now prop up Gavin Newsom as the guy who stood up to Trump, especially because like as of today, I think like 2 hours ago, Donald Trump got off Marine One. He was asked by a couple reporters like, Gavin Newsom dared Tom Homan to arrest him. Do you think Tom Homan should arrest him? And Trump said, yeah, I'd arrest the guy.
Come on, man.
You can't say that. Like, you can't be the president and say that, especially when it's like, you might, Like,
Trump is everything they accuse Biden of being in terms of weaponizing the government, like, against political enemies.
But it's okay because Gavin Newsom's doing a bad job because LA is on fire.
Yeah.
The entirety of LA is burned down. LA County, too, not even just city.
Yeah, but even like Gavin Newsom, the way that like Democrats have been talking about it, like I've seen a bunch of governors, including Whitmer, come out against what's happening right now, like how people are reacting to the protests. And even they're talking about it in terms of like the law.
Yes.
Like it's illegal for Trump to send the National Guard in this way. And, maybe there's an argument there. But I think you should just call the ICE Gestapo like Tim Walz did.
That's the thing.
Because that's what they are.
I think this is what we do. It's like anytime you want to go to like legality when it comes to like a moral issue like this, I think the legality is supposed to be the supporting argument.
Yes.
And the primary driver of the discourse should be Trump is raiding Home Depots
Yup.
for Mexican people.
Yeah, like there was a video I saw of like a bunch of brown dudes running away from something going on. I'm guessing it was something ICE related.
Yeah.
And it was just like no way to know if they're undocumented, right? They're just dudes that were working somewhere. And somebody quote tweets at a right winger and they're like, this is exactly what I voted for.
Oh my God,
these people are evil, they're hateful, they would have agreed with the Nazis.
And I was thinking about that this morning in the shower. I was kind of thinking, like, I feel like there's a lot of things people say about, like, oh, if only we would have had, like, modern technology back during the atrocities of, like, World War II, during Hitler's rise to power, people would have been able to see the awful things that the Nazis were doing to the Jews and how they were lying and these things were manufactured. And after watching the protests on Twitter, keeping up with the news, and seeing the enormous amount of right-wingers tweet out videos of cops launching pepper balls and rubber bullets into the crowd, quoting it and saying, this is exactly what I voted for, made me think that, maybe it actually would have been worse if we had cameras back then.
It wasn't a mystery to German citizens what was happening.
It wasn't.
They knew what was happening when the trains went by. They knew exactly what it was. And there are even people today, even though there's tons and tons of videos of concentration camps during the Holocaust, there are still people today that deny the Holocaust.
Exactly.
In its severity. So no, it wouldn't have made a difference.
People would have just, found the one video of one Jewish person doing something bad, just like they take the one story of one immigrant doing something bad and absolutely blast it across the airwaves and never let you forget about it.
And that's what Nazis did.
Exactly.
They'd put it in newspaper print, of course, but it's the same shit.
Yeah, it's very disappointing.
It's
very disappointing to see that we can watch atrocities unfold just like on my phone while I'm eating breakfast and see so many people come out blatantly in support of it. And I mean, this extends broadly beyond the LA protest stuff. It goes into Gaza too.
For sure.
So many videos of children just being burned alive in schools that were bombed for really no reason. And people are like, oh yeah, haha, this is what happens when you hit, you get hit back. And it's just gross.
And it's like, I saw a video this morning where it was some girl on TikTok and she was like, just because you see videos of kids dying doesn't mean the war is unjust. And it's like, well,
what are we, an IDF official?
She gets to vote. Like, same as me, man. You know what I mean? Like, she gets to vote, same as me. Yeah. I gotta share a country with someone who has an ideology like that.
We're not operating fundamentally on like the same moral principles, and that's a problem.
It's just it's fundamentally evil. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it should be stopped.
I do. I think it should be stopped. I think things should be condemned. I think moral issues should be treated like moral issues, and we shouldn't back down from condemning the necessary things.
Yeah, or like, speaking to like Israel and stuff, Greta Thunberg was just fucking kidnapped on the Freedom Flotilla, and people are like, yeah, that's good. Dog, they have no jurisdiction to kidnap. They were in the Mediterranean.
Oh, but they were going to break the blockade, but they didn't.
But they didn't.
They
were arrested. You can't punish someone before a crime is committed. That's not how that works. Anyways, we should get into the details of the protests here. So protests erupted in LA on Friday after about 44 people were arrested and detained on immigration violations by ICE, and allegedly they were being held in the basement of a federal building. This immediately sparked a pretty small protest in, I believe it was Paramount in LA, a neighborhood called Paramount. And then the protest started to swell.
Yeah, it was like, I think initially it's like 1,000 people were just surrounding a federal building.
I don't even think it was that many.
Probably initially. I know eventually,
right away,
when I saw things start to pop off, it was like 1,000 people were just like surrounding a federal building and whatnot, where 44 people were detained.
And we're talking LA. That's a county of what, 8 million? Something like 9 million?
LA, it's one of the most like densely populated places in the world.
Well, yeah, there's like the distinction between the city proper and the county. I know LA is the biggest county. I think it's like 10 million people in LA County. So like 1,000's like nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's this very small fraction of the thing. And it's like reportedly ICE was just pulling up in military fatigues with help from DHS, the FBI, and even the DEA so that they could come in and carry out these raids. And I just got to say, there's this big narrative going around between, I guess, like government officials that these ICE guys are just super brave and they just want to they just want to get back home to their families at the end of the day, and they're just trying to do their job, and they're the bravest among us, and they're really trying really hard. Yet they got to have help from literally everybody else. And like, where are the FBI needs to stop crime people when they're talking about like directing the FBI, taking FBI resources away, taking DEA taking DEA resources away from actually going after like drug rings, drug smuggling, the FBI resources from looking at human trafficking when they want to take those agents and send them to Home Depot.
Yeah, no, we're sending them literally to Home Depot, and we'll talk about that. But like Home Depot.
Yeah.
People that are like working at Home Depot.
They're working at Home Depot. And it's like ICE officers 2 months ago were showing up to college campuses to abduct college students in like plain clothes. And now they're showing up to like Home Depot and apparently like fashion outlets in military fatigues like they're about to invade Iraq.
Mm-hmm. With their faces covered because they know they're doing something horrendous.
Exactly. In just like full battle gear. Desert camo in an urban environment with military rifles.
Just like immediately escalating the situation.
In what looks like APCs.
Yeah.
Like APCs that you'd see driving through the streets of Afghanistan.
Yeah, how are you going to pull up like you're an occupying army and not expect any kind of resistance?
Yeah.
Dog, and you're, by the way, like scooping people up and throwing them into unmarked vans. Like ICE was throwing them into just plain white vans.
Like you're LARPing.
Yeah.
You know what? You cannot show up anywhere in military fatigues and guns and bust into a place without a warrant without expecting people to be like, what the fuck is going on?
I think they did have warrants for the Home Depot and the fashion stores.
For the Home Depot?
Yeah.
See, it's hard thinking about it because there were like, I think like there ended up being like 2,000 or something arrests like last week. And they're going through without warrants for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't think they have warrants all the time. I mean, because we talked about a while ago, there was one case where they were looking for one guy. One of the ICE agents says, this isn't him, and they were like, grab him anyway.
Yep.
Like, you don't have a warrant if you don't even know who this guy is.
Very true. Very true.
So, yeah, no, they definitely don't always have warrants, but they had warrants this time, I believe, because a judge gave them the warrant on probable cause that the employer was, like, submitting fake documents to the state,
you know,
essentially.
arguably, like, having a warrant and then pulling up in this style, I feel like makes it, like, even worse. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like you need to pull up with just a show of force to go get a day laborer?
Yeah, if you've got a warrant, you can just say, like, hey, you're coming with me.
Yeah, hey, buddy, come with me. Or go to your boss and be like, hey, buddy, is he work today?
You pull up like 8 deep in a fucking tank. like, what are you afraid of, man?
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's generally good that like the Gestapo doesn't feel like they can just walk around with impunity.
Yeah.
But it also isn't great that they're walking up like armored and shit like that.
Yeah,
too.
you know, there's really like no good situation where the Gestapo is walking around. But
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's looking not great. But ICE claims the 5 of the arrests were people with connections to criminal organizations of the 44.
That's not a good ratio.
Who knows if like this is even true because you're considered a part of like TDA if you wear a Bulls jersey. So like I don't know what their standard is here, but they said of the 44 that were arrested on Friday, 5 of them were related to criminal organizations. And CBS broadly obtained internal government data that says the total number of arrests by ICE topped 100,000 this week. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's a lot of people, man.
Especially when we're looking at like raids like this where they're admitting that 10% of the people that they grabbed actually have a criminal record. Mm-hmm. So much of the narrative, so much of the like manufacturing consent around this mass deportation thing was the idea that every single person that pours across the southern border is a big brown guy with face tattoos and tattoos all over their head that's going to come and kill your daughter.
Yeah. When it's just a Home Depot worker.
When it's a day laborer. Somebody sitting outside a Home Depot waiting, please, can I build a fence for you?
Or it's just a dude that's going to like sell you, I don't know, a new door for your house.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and install
or sell you some plywood or
for
something
cheap
like
rates.
That. Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's it. It's fundamentally absurd, man. And it's just nobody cares anymore that they're just snatching up random people.
Yeah, exactly. It's really bad.
But and even with that, it's funny that they still feel like they have to lean into the crime narrative.
Yeah.
They still aren't willing to go full. They aren't willing to say what they mean with their chest in that we just want everybody out of here because they still have to lie that all of these guys are violent.
And like the supporters are saying, like the vocal supporters, the people with like platforms have been saying, we just want them all out of here.
Yeah.
And there has been some, I won't even say some, there's been a lot of rhetorical drift even since 2020 when Trump's always been hostile to immigrants. But since he first ran, it has gotten more to the point where it's just like, if they're brown, get them out.
Yep.
Because we see people posting all the time like, oh, here's California in the 1970s. Do you notice anything?
Dog, I saw one of those posts this week and it was like 2 people.
Yeah.
They just followed like a couple for like 2 minutes. Like that's it. Sample size. Mm-hmm. Sample size.
It's also like it's California. California is known for having immigrants in the state. Yes. Like one of the major places that immigrants have came to. You know what I mean? Like it's California. Like what that's like going to Texas and being like, man, remember when it was all white? No,
it never actually used to be Mexico.
Yeah, at no point. So late Saturday night, Trump announced that he would be sidestepping Gavin Newsom to take control of and deploy 2,000 National Guard troops in California against the protesters that formed off of these initial protests outside of the federal building. There were protests that popped up in Paramount, and then I think in Santa Monica, and then in downtown LA.
Yeah.
And the protests were, of course, in response to the 44 people that were grabbed. I think in total over the weekend, it was like 100-something people grabbed in LA.
Okay.
So there was a lot of people being grabbed, a lot of people just being disappeared, and this provoked some outrage.
It's like they're doing shock and awe on Home Depot.
Yeah. So Trump said he was going to send in 2,000 National Guard troops. I don't know if the president has the authority to just requisition National Guard forces from governors. There's been an argument that he doesn't. And that's kind of the besides the point, because this hasn't been done in a very long time. It's been decades since the president just said, like, I'm going to use this state's National Guard troops. He hasn't sent in 2,000, at least at the time of recording this, but there have been about 300 in LA as of June 9th, according to NBC. So that's like a standing army sent into LA.
No, they're occupying LA. I think in like the order that he signed, it's something like he's authorizing minimum of 2,000 troops to go and occupy LA for 60 days. Yeah. And this can be escalated at the discretion of like the DOD. So Pete Hegseth, so it will be. Yeah,
I got it in here somewhere, but I think police and ICE declared downtown LA like a no assembly zone, effectively. Like you can't be protesting right here, which is like,
can you do that?
Where my Constitution at?
That's what I'm saying.
Where my First Amendment at?
What happened to the right? That's like the first part of the First Amendment too. The right to protest, right to assembly.
Right to assembly, yeah.
That's gas. No, this is absolutely just one of the largest like escalations in this whole mass deportation effort that we've seen. It's kind of insane. I feel like that's a bit understated, even though we've been stating it.
And like it's not quite our version of like the burning of the Reichstag, right? Like the German parliament that the Nazis used as a pretext to crack down. But it is pretty bad. It is interesting though, because like J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, the people all up in the administration are like frothing at the mouth to just like crack some skulls.
Yes.
Because that's what they want to do. But usually they wait until, like fascists generally, like wait till something big happens to use as a pretext to like, you know, expel people or kill people or hurt people, whatever. This isn't that big of a thing.
It feels
to
like
react
they're trying to goad people into doing something big though.
I think so too.
Because why are you pulling up like you're pulling up to Iraq? Why are you pulling up like this is Zero Dark 30 and you're about to kill Osama bin Laden? It's Home Depot. It's Home Depot, dog. It's crazy. And there was a lot of talk on Saturday night about the Insurrection Act. And I'd seen a lot of reporting that people saying Trump invoked the Insurrection Act to get the National Guard out there. And while that's not true, this is the closest that Trump can possibly get to invoking the Insurrection Act without actually invoking the act. Instead, he used like, I think it's like Article 10 powers. Yeah, here it is. Instead, Trump used a specific provision within Title 10 of the U.S. Code on Armed Services. Part of the provision allows the federal deployment of National Guard forces if, quote, there is a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. Trump is making the argument that what happened in L.A. was tantamount to a rebellion against the government because people threw a couple rocks at ICE vehicles walking by that kidnapped people off the street.
And it got to remind you that this started as and for the most part, it still has been a peaceful protest.
Yes.
There has been like some stuff lit on fire. There's been rocks thrown. There was one dude that was like hit by a car that ICE was driving, of course. But a lot of these escalations started because of ICE.
Yeah.
Like shooting flashbangs into the crowd and shit. In fucking California, by the way. Really easy to start a fire if you're just shooting a flashbang.
This all fucking happened because they pulled up in the APCs.
Yeah, exactly.
You would not have had protests like this if ICE was just doing, I guess, what they had been doing before.
Yeah, but even then, when the protests first started, after ICE, like, you know, escalated the situation in these communities, people didn't react violently. Like, shit wasn't burning. And then when ICE kept escalating the situation, then that's when stuff started to get a lot more rowdy.
There haven't been protests outside of, like, the courthouses that ICE has been nabbing people from. There haven't been mass protests after, really at any other places ICE has been nabbing people from, except maybe, like, universities, but even then those protests weren't, like, anything insane. It is explicitly because they're doing things in an aesthetically violent way that people are responding with maybe a little bit of like violence.
Yeah, but I mean, but again,
I don't even want to call it like violence. They're just responding. I don't even want to say they're responding proportionately, like, because how proportional can you get to state violence?
Yeah, I gotta stress that like these protests have been peaceful.
Yeah,
like for them, like they've been disruptive certainly, but like that's protesting. You know what I mean? Has there been bad actors that have done bad things? Yeah, maybe. But like, again, you can't even compare it to the state violence. Not to mention that ICE is literally fucking like shooting reporters with rubber bullets.
I had seen on like Saturday night, I think people were trying to like create the idea that like people were looting downtown LA by showing one video of one guy walking into one store, and it didn't catch on, but people were trying.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been looting.
Like,
I haven't seen it at all.
People are doing everything that they can to make these protests look like they were more than they were.
Yeah.
And it's a tried and true thing that the right has been doing. That's what they did when they said Minneapolis literally burned down. It's not on the map anymore. But this didn't even get to the point where that could be a reasonable conclusion to draw, even if you're like a motherfucker that lives in the suburbs.
Yeah. And it's certainly not even close to a rebellion. Are you kidding?
Oh, no, absolutely
rebellion.
not. But I mean, I think that's where it's important that we talk about why he used Article 10 powers from the U.S. Armed Services Code. Because if he's trying to say that what's happening right now in L.A. is tantamount to a rebellion, and if that holds up to, I guess, like legal muster, then what is stopping Trump from saying that any action that could possibly obstruct like a federal officer, an ICE agent specifically, is rebellion and could be met with increased force?
Yeah, resistance is rebellion.
Yeah,
or disagreement is rebellion. Yeah,
because this shit has been pretty civil. Even like the pictures the cool ass pictures, mind you, that have been going around of people waving like Mexican flags with smoke in the background. A lot of that smoke is from like, I don't know, maybe one car that got lit on fire.
Yeah, that well, like you said, like for the first few days, they focused on the one car that was lit on fire.
Yeah, or
just from different angles,
or from, I don't know, cops going in and launching tear gas at all of these people, throwing the pepper bombs, throwing flashbangs into crowds.
There was a time when ICE launched tear gas and then it hit the LAPD.
Dude, no,
they're so dumb.
I saw this one video. I don't know how, because I've just been watching like protest coverage on like TikTok, obviously. Sometimes when you're watching coverage, no matter what side of like the ideological spectrum you're watching that coverage from, the other side will slip in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I saw this video pop up on my page. It had like 20 likes or something like that. And it was from this account that was like, defending the line, the thin blue line profile picture and everything like that. And it was like, look at these restaurant workers helping out LAPD after they got tear gas. And it was a restaurant worker putting milk in a cop's eyes. And it's like, yeah, but the cop did that. Like,
yeah, the protesters don't have tear gas.
Yeah, but they did that shit to themselves. Like,
man, that's so funny.
Thought that shit was hilarious. The irony there was just nuts.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out like why it feels like these escalations have happened. And there's like a point in midway that we can point to see like what's going on. So in mid-May, Stephen Miller was reportedly frustrated with the, quote, low number of ICE arrests. So he had he sent out like a memo saying that we need to up the daily quota to 3,000 arrests a day. And he threatened to fire the senior ICE officials if they can't make that happen.
So this is just Stephen Miller's fault.
This is all Stephen Miller's fault.
Yeah.
It's insane because previously, like up until this point, up until last week, ICE had been arresting about 660 people per day.
Yeah.
Very close to an auspicious number. Very close to an auspicious number.
Almost fitting.
Almost fitting for what Stephen Miller and his cronies are doing. But 3,000 arrests a day is an insane amount. That's nuts.
Yeah.
3,000 arrests a day would mean like over 1 million arrests per year, which
that was their goal too.
It's not going to get them to the numbers that they claim they want to get to, which I don't want them to get to, but I'm saying, you know what I mean? Like call them out on their own thing. Like Obama, I think deported, I think 3 million people throughout his 8-year administration.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out for you, buddy.
Yeah. This is a good opportunity for the Democrats to be like, at this point, Biden deported more people than Trump has.
And you know, I'm surprised Chuck Schumer still hasn't really said anything.
Yeah.
I just checked Twitter like a couple minutes ago to see if he did, and he tweeted something about a birthday, and he tweeted something about being in a New York thing for Puerto Ricans.
Dude, fuck
Which,
off.
like, that's cool, I guess, but, like, buddy almost invoked the Insurrection Act. They're occupying L.A. right now.
You got a job to do.
There's literally a military occupation of the downtown L.A. right now.
Yeah.
I think you should be focused a little bit more on the very pressing issue.
If this shit can happen in L.A., again, like, biggest county that we got in the country, then they can do this in your town.
Oh, yeah.
They can do this very easy. They could do it in New York City. They could do it in Chicago. They could do it in Detroit. They could do it in Philadelphia. Like, they could do it in any city in the country if they wanted to. Especially if your governor is a right-winger or a Republican that's willing to give over their National Guard troops, they could do it to you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's important to join in resistances or support from afar resistances in the moment. Also, I got to say, Trump calling it a rebellion, makes it sound a lot cooler.
It does sound a lot
Maybe
cooler.
it's just because I'm watching Andor season 2 right now, but calling it a rebellion immediately makes it sound cool.
Because it
sounds much better than riot.
My favorite genre of like post over the weekend were these posts by like government accounts, like the White House account, the Homeland Security account, that would say shit like, we need to restore law and order. LA is burning to the ground right now. There's an insurrection happening in LA. Look at the invasion going on. And then it's followed by the coolest picture you've ever seen of somebody on a motorcycle with like the Mexican flag, or somebody standing on a cop car shirtless with a Mexican flag. Like it's
Dude,
cool, man.
My favorite photo was I think it was a picture of ICE agents. And I don't know who it was posted by, but it's a picture of ICE agents and they're lined up outside a donut shop. And someone retweets it and says, "Tactical retreat to the donut shop." Like, how can you think that looked good?
You can't make that shit up. You can't make that shit. This is why photojournalists are important.
Tactical retreat, brother.
Holy shit, man.
Anyway, it's all Stephen Miller's fault.
Yeah. It's all Stephen Miller's fault. And back to Stephen Miller, he also said that the bottom 10% of like ICE field offices will face leadership changes monthly for not being able to keep up with that quota.
That's crazy.
So like, not only is Stephen Miller responsible for creating a culture of fear like throughout the country, especially in the immigrant population, he's also like intimidating ICE agents to keep up. Mm-hmm. Buddy is more fascist than like the Gestapo.
Yeah, he's running this shit like a middle manager.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Bro's like Himmler.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like he's saying we're going to get efficient at moving people. Again, a historically bad thing for the government to do.
100%. Guys, this has never worked out well.
No.
There's a lot of weird things that are happening right now that's never worked out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like rampant escalations in the government, a right-wing government taking over during like a term where the Olympics will be held in that government. Mm-hmm. What was it? The 36 Olympics were held in Germany.
Yeah, and then like a black guy won, and Hitler was like, "That does not fit the narrative." I think he won like the track and some like 400 meter dash or something. I don't know. But also we got a Stephen Miller quote out of this, which again, a banger considering the context. But Stephen Miller tweeted, quote, "We will take back America." As if they're not arresting and deporting people from fucking Home Depot.
Dude, no, that shit is so funny.
We're going to take back America from Home Depot workers?
Stephen Miller's tweets this weekend were so funny and scary, by the way. Also, can't forget that part. But he was just retweeting the like pictures of this picture goes hard, feel free to screenshot type pictures of guys with Mexican flags walking around looking really cool, talking about how like clearly it's an invasion. Mm-hmm. If you went to any other country and saw foreign flags flying, you'd think they were taken over by an occupying force. The only occupying force in LA is the National Guard.
Yep.
Like
100%.
Point blank, that's it, man.
It's like the narrative is that Mexican cartels and Venezuelan gangs are coming over the border and conducting an invasion.
Yes.
And we're snatching people out of Home Depot and fashion stores.
And admitting that only 10% of the people that we grabbed in this one instance were actually criminals.
Yeah, like that is what caused the protests here, was you grabbing Home Depot workers. Mm-hmm. And you're going to tell us that you're going to take America back from fucking who, dog? Yeah. These are the people running America. These are the people making America work, local communities. Like, what are we doing?
Exactly, especially in LA. Yeah. Especially in a place like California with like the highest density of immigrants in the country.
Yeah.
Like that's not.
So as a result of these ICE raids, it was, I think,
as a result of Stephen Miller's new quota.
Yeah, it was the what was it? The most people in a day, something like that.
Yeah, last Tuesday, the most people, like ICE arrested the most people in a single day in the history of the like department.
That's crazy, man.
It's bad, and they still didn't even hit the 3,000 number. Stephen
Miller set this knowing it'd be a record.
Stephen Miller wants a historic number of deportations or of arrests every single day of this administration. He wants an unattainable goal for this plane. And they got 2,200 people on Tuesday. And I think this is important, one, because of, again, just the escalation in the number of people that they're grabbing. They're grabbing like 4 times more than the average they had been grabbing before.
Yeah.
But also because of how they're doing it, because a large part of how this was accomplished was by tricking people who are on the Alternatives to Detention program. The ADP is a program for immigrants who have been ruled explicitly by a judge not to be a risk to public safety. These are people who are like by definition not violent, not criminals. They're just here in the country and don't happen to have papers. Many such cases.
They're here. They're working. They're not using Medicaid because they can't, because they're not a citizen.
Precisely.
They are a net boon for the United States.
Yes. Yes. And like, in fact, they're so nonviolent and compliant that according to ICE's own data, 98.5% of them appear regularly and on time for their check-ins.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. These sound like law-abiding citizens.
Well, these are people that are working towards being here legally. Like,
I know people who were born in the country that missed their appointments more than that. Oh,
me.
Me.
Probably me.
I'm one of those guys. I be canceling appointments all the time. I'm a busy dude. What can I say? In some cases, ICE will like constantly track the people who are on the program. They'll track their movements with things like ankle monitors, and as of last month, the number of people on the ADP program that had ankle monitors was about 20,000. Last week, ICE sent out a mass text telling people to come to their check-ins early, and then when they arrived, they were arrested.
It's just fundamentally fucking evil.
Such
an evil thing to do.
And we also have to keep in mind, these people have no other option other than to show up to their appointments whenever they're told to show up the appointments, because the penalty for missing your appointment is deportation and arrest.
Yeah, so it's either get deported or get deported.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a choice, man.
We have created a perverse incentive for people to not show up to their ICE check-ins, for people to not cooperate with the organization, because if they do cooperate, they'll be deported. The only chance for them to continue their lives as they've built them is to not go to the ICE check-in and push themselves into criminality, to push themselves away from the government, to push them to the darker reaches of society.
It's exactly why sanctuary cities and sanctuary states are like good policy.
Yes.
Is because it ensures that immigrants are willing to talk to police or state law enforcement or just like state officials generally, because they know they won't get deported. Like you need it's crazy.
And it's like, obviously this is an escalation, like the doing the mass text, getting people like the model undocumented immigrant. That's who the people on this program seem to be. You know what I'm saying? It's alternatives. It's people who we said we don't need to get them out right now because like they're chill.
Yep.
The model undocumented immigrant, to feel like we have to trick them into doing this is obviously an escalation. But this is a tactic that ICE has been engaging in over the past like 2 months, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about a couple times how they will wait in front of courthouses to either arrest people on their way to their immigration appointments, sometimes arresting people on their way to their asylum hearings, or arrest them after their immigration appointments. A new tactic that dropped was government lawyers will show up to courthouses, get their case dismissed against them, and then deport them after the case is dismissed.
Jesus
arrest
Christ,
them and deport them at
man.
the courthouse after this is missed. And I think it's important to talk about this, and I think it's important to talk about the numbers of people that are on the ADP program, specifically the 20,000 ankle monitors, the easiest there are to track, because that's not a lot of people. If you go and get every single person on ADP that has an ankle monitor, you will run out of Stephen Miller's quota in less than a week.
Yeah.
What do they do after they run out of the easy pickings?
Yeah.
They're going to necessarily escalate because ICE is going to get more desperate to meet that already unattainable quota.
They told us on the campaign trail, they told us when they first got into office, we're going after the violent ones first. Like that was the justification, because Trump kept saying 20 million illegal immigrants are in the country. And then when officials were pressed about it, like JD Vance, he was like, well, we're going to go after the violent ones first, of course, and we'll see how that goes. They're going after like the people that are definitionally fine.
Yeah, it turns out the violent ones are like hard to get. and instead of going after the violent ones, the government is diverting FBI, DEA, Homeland Security resources from looking after the violent ones to go after the dudes that are day laboring.
And saying like the violent ones was already a misdirection, because the vast majority of them do not commit violent crimes.
Of course.
And they commit violent crimes at a lower rate than U.S. citizens.
Interesting. And they also pay more in taxes than they take out in benefits. So what do you do? And they just kind of want to be here and have chill lives.
And like, immigrants are cool, man.
Immigrants are cool.
I got immigrant friends. They're cool people.
Exactly. They make the community more diverse. They bring interesting perspectives and good food.
You see, speaking of food, you see Matt Walsh's take?
Oh, God.
Matt Walsh posted something on Twitter, something to the effect of like, every Mexican dish is just a different form of a taco, and it sucks.
That's just because you've only had white people Mexican.
That's the whitest thing I've ever seen him tweet, dog.
That sounds like a guy who has Taco Tuesday every week.
That's like chronically white. That's like re-education camp level white. Like something needs to be done about this guy.
Bro needs to take a class on multiculturalism. Bro needs to be forced into a class on multiculturalism.
Yeah, he needs to like take some time to like live in New York City or something like that.
Bro thinks that P.F. Chang's is Chinese cuisine.
It's crazy. Like, oh man.
You know, that was a banger. Matt Walsh, what a motherfucker, man.
Yeah, with another banger.
Absolutely, what a motherfucker. But even just back to the court things, back to how ICE has been nabbing people and whatnot. Policies like this are fundamentally corrosive to the idea of law and order. You are pushing people, you are incentivizing people not to cooperate with with the government.
Yeah.
You're pushing them away from the government. You're eroding trust in the government and public order in general. This is not law and order like they claim it is. You're just scaring people into doing things that will make the country worse.
And that feels like the goal, right? Like
it is the goal.
If they can, if they get immigrants to show up to these check-ins and then they immediately get deported, they get what they want. Or if they can force immigrants away from like interacting with the law, then they can hit them with trumped-up charges and get them even harder and justify even more violence against them. It is the intent, I believe.
There are so many median voters that see this policy and think that is them executing on the law that don't understand the complexities of how you actually maintain a civil society.
Yeah.
They don't understand that this is bad. They don't understand that this is going to make things worse. And it makes it hard to communicate to these people why what's going on is wrong.
Yep. Yeah,
it's not good, folks. It's not good.
It's really not good. There's a couple of extra things we could talk about on these protests, though.
Yeah,
just some like narrative things. We've talked about how it's going to hurt people, or not the protests themselves, but the actions of the government are hurting people. How the protests are reactions to how the state is hurting people. But there's some other discourse we got. I do want to highlight again, though. Reporters getting shot with rubber bullets is crazy.
That is insane, and it's like the video too. It's like it's this Australian reporter that's covering obviously the LA protests, and in the video, the cop turns away from like the line that he's trying to maintain, shoots her on camera, and then like looks back.
Yeah, like explicitly raises his gun and shoots her right in like the leg or the arm or something
just for fun.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have, she wasn't even like walking back. She's not walking towards her line. She's standing.
She wasn't facing
very much at a distance, back turned to you, not running, not doing anything. Even if you couldn't see the mic in her hand, you could see the dude with a big ass camera standing right in front of her. Oh my God, man. The audacity of these people.
Abolish ICE is the most vindicated cause in all of human history.
Absolutely.
Man. Holy shit. ICE needs to go away. Obviously, a bunch of arrests have been made. As of today, Monday, I don't know if like the protests are still happening.
Yeah.
As we said, like LA was declared like a no assembly zone, which again, where my 1A guys at.
When I was reading before we hopped on, just to try and catch up and see if anything crazy happened, when I found out that Trump was like, yeah, we should arrest Gavin Newsom, I had seen coverage that said protests are scheduled to start later today, which makes sense because people work on Mondays.
Yep.
And not everybody's a paid agitator.
Yeah.
In fact, there are probably zero paid agitators at these protests. That's not a real thing.
Yeah. Now, I do want to get into flag discourse in a minute, and I think I want to do that by reading. Actually, I think we should just read the JD Vance tweet, and then we can talk about flag discourse.
Okay.
Because that's been a big thing. Obviously, the right has seen the Mexican flags and been like, that's an invading army. But there's been people on the left, quote unquote, left, that have been saying, like, we should not have the flags of other countries at these protests. So we'll get into that in just a second.
Yeah, liberal derogatory.
But I want to get into it by reading this quote from JD Vance. I believe it was on Friday he tweeted this out, just when everything was kicking off. He said, quote, "One of the main technical issues in the immigration judicial battles is whether Biden's border crisis counted as a quote-unquote invasion. So now we have foreign nationals with no legal right to be here in a country waving foreign flags and assaulting law enforcement. If only we had a good word for that."
If only we didn't judge situations, wartime situations based on a couple pictures and videos on the ground.
Well, and it's like, brother, the city's called Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
It's a city called Los Angeles. Of course, people are going to be flying flags from Latin America. It's one of the biggest states for immigration.
And once again, the founding principles of this country.
Yeah.
A bunch of different people coming, a melting pot, if you will.
Yeah, of course, like JD Vance in this tweet is exaggerating. It's not a bunch of quote-unquote foreign nationals assaulting law enforcement officers. It's just people waving like Mexican flags.
Exactly.
And that totally makes sense because people that were grabbed were from Mexico,
and
immigrants from Mexico.
It's like 3 pictures that went viral.
Yeah.
And they're acting like literally everyone here is waving Mexican flags. And it's like nobody ever does this when it comes to like Little Italy in New York. Nobody ever complains about ethnic communities unless they're Mexican.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or the bigger one when it comes to flying the flag of another country, nobody complains when it's Israel.
Oh my God!
When John Fetterman flies the Israeli flag, or when Rick Scott has the Israeli flag framed in his office, nobody cares.
Didn't John Fetterman wear the Israeli flag to Congress?
Yes, he wore it as a cape.
Like a cape, brother.
He wore it as a cape at the Israel Day protest a year ago or something like that. Nobody actually cares about flag discourse. No. JD Vance doesn't care about it. And if there's anybody on the left that's right now doing some kind of grandstanding saying we should only have American flags at these protests, you are stupid and should stop.
You're a special kind of stupid if you're getting on Twitter and using your voice and using your platform in this moment where Donald Trump is damn near invoking the Insurrection Act, but just not quite, to say that, well, I think it actually helps your cause if you hold an American flag because it shows that you hold American ideals and they can't attack you on this patriotism angle. There are so many people on the left that would rather criticize, that would rather nitpick the actions of protesters in historic moments like this than actually take a definitive stance on anything.
Yeah, and it's like Kamala Harris had a bunch of American flags at all of her rallies, at all of her speeches, and they still said that she wants a wave of illegal immigrants to invade the country.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what flag you're flying. It's purely like an optical argument that the left is having with itself, and it just doesn't matter. And again, I'll remind you, people are waving the Mexican flag. Some people are waving the Mexican flag, and those pictures are going viral because immigrants from Mexico were scooped up and deported. And by waving the flag of the country that you're from, you are saying, this is who I am, and I am here.
Yeah.
That is the statement that you're making. And again, I must emphasize, the city is called Los Angeles. It was founded by Spanish speakers. Like I don't know how to, it's like going to El Paso, Texas and being like, why are there so many brown people here? It's just the history of the city.
Yeah.
It's so fucking stupid, man. And if you're out here saying like only American flags should be flown, take some time, go to the protest yourself. That would be more beneficial.
It's just so fundamentally dumb to engage with irrational critiques rationally. Like just to try and make sense out of these things that they're going to call you anyway.
Yeah.
If somebody's calling you a loser, you can't go and be like, no, actually, I'm really cool. I go out and do this.
Yeah.
They're always going to call you a loser if they think you're a loser. It's the same thing with the whole Marxist stuff that the right likes to launch. Ever since, I don't know, the fucking 50s, American conservatives have been launching critiques at left-wing figures that they're Marxists. And it's been the same ever since, no matter if we had Marxists or if we had Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you support privatized healthcare, Medicare for all, the public option, they're going to call you a socialist. Because that's what they do. It doesn't matter.
You ought to just be the cool thing, a socialist.
Yeah, you ought to just dig in. Another debate that I've been seeing happening is this allegation that there's riots happening, which again, there really is not. It's mostly peaceful protests. But also people talking about political violence and how it makes the protests look bad, and by extension, the broader movement look bad. And of course, as I said, there wasn't really rioting. There wasn't a bunch of looters. These are just allegations that the media, specifically the right wing, is making. But the reason that we have a running gimmick of saying I condemn political violence is in part to make fun of the people who don't understand where political violence actually stems from.
Yes.
I've been seeing some people, we had a few DMs the other week, people asking us about if the community is getting to a point where there's just an unnuanced view when people say I condemn political violence. They don't understand the gimmick or mockery within it. When we say it, it's because we're making fun of the people that don't understand why political violence happens. It's the same reason we say I condemn Hamas, right?
The whole I condemn Hamas thing started was because at every single congressional hearing about the issue, which is weird, it's not an issue in our country, that would happen, or anytime anyone would bring up any sort of vaguely pro-Palestinian stance, the only thing they would be asked is if they condemn Hamas. And it's well, yes, of course I condemn Hamas. I condemn the actions of this organization. However, I rock with the plight of the Palestinian people and understand the complex sociological machinations that lead to a group like Hamas taking power.
Exactly. It's the same thing with political violence. It doesn't come out of nowhere. First of all, again, I got to stress, protests mostly peaceful, but to the extent that there is political violence, or to the extent that political violence will happen in the future, it's in response to state-sanctioned violence against marginalized groups, or bigotry of some form, or political or economic inequality, right? There's reasons these things happen, and if you just take the view that if political violence happens, that means the entire movement is moot, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't even be if somebody comes out and asks oh, but do you condemn this violence? They're missing the point. It reminds me of the interview that Angela Davis gave, I think in the 1970s. She was in prison at the time, and someone's interviewing her and asks well, but what do you think about violence? And she laughs at him because it's all my life I've only known violence. Violence from the government against black communities, violence within black communities against each other. All I've known is violence, and you're going to ask me to condemn violence as if that hasn't been my entire existence? It's a stupid question.
Yeah.
And it misses the broader point. What we should be talking about is the violence enacted on these communities by the government as a precursor for whatever happens next.
Nobody has to sit here. No government official is put on trial and has to sit here and say, oh, I actually condemn the actions of ICE. I condemn the actions of that cop who shot that reporter, blah, blah, blah. They just get to do it.
Yeah.
And they get to get away with it unquestioned. It's only ever when somebody, I don't know, that throws a rock at a car that we have to sit here and have these lengthy discussions on Twitter about whether or not we should be endorsing this behavior and not talking about the actual issue at hand. It's a bit silly.
And a lot of people lately of leftist ideology or leftist persuasion have been spreading the quote that yes, MLK believed in peaceful protest, but the one thing he missed was what if the people you're trying to convince don't have a moral conscience? And when that happens, or when your communities are being brutalized and ripped apart, it's just not within the human spirit to just let that happen.
Yeah, I mean,
people are going to react, and that's not to say that
people were saying that as a criticism of MLK.
Yeah.
I think that's like lacking in historical context too. I feel like that
Yeah,
kind of
that's
falls
true.
into the myth of the idea that MLK was the peaceful guy and Malcolm X was the evil, violent guy.
Yeah.
When in fact they both did both of those things. Like MLK was not a figure that was just sitting around talking about how like, oh no, only be peaceful, blah, blah, blah. He's the guy who had the quote, riots are the language of the unheard. And I know that because that's the thing that right-wingers were using to try and smear the guy back in 2020. You know what I'm saying? Like, even that's just dumb.
Yeah, and I think the broader point is that if the Gestapo essentially are going to come in and rip communities apart, there will be a reaction. And that doesn't mean that we have to call for or condone or be okay with political violence, but know that if we're taking a materialist approach, that will be the outcome.
Yeah.
Because people will not just sit idly by as the government rips their communities apart. They're going to react. They're going to do something. And if we can't understand where that's coming from, then we're never going to get anything done.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I need you all to lock in a little bit. But before we move on to more immigration news, but less about ICE in LA, I do want to take a moment to have a little giggle.
Okay.
Because we've been talking about sad news kind of the entire time. Things feel bad. I felt bad listening to all of this over the weekend. This was a video that I want to play, and it was released, I think like a week ago, before these LA protests. ICE is having a hard time. And the officials high up at ICE want you to know that they have families too.
They got feelings.
They have emotions.
All these guys that are throwing flashbangs to disperse crowds of protesters.
Yeah,
they feel that.
And they sent out a video on Twitter. It's about a minute long. I want to take a look here. The guy speaking, for those listening on audio, is Ted Leon's the head guy of ICE, the person that Trump appointed to lead ICE. And he's got a message for us that I think the American people just fundamentally need to hear. So I think we should take a listen here.
Officers and agents walk into danger so other people can sleep safely at night, so kids can make it to school safely and play outside. So while it's easy to be an armchair quarterback and make up talking points that get activists riled up, the bottom line is my officers and agents are out there protecting the same people who are threatening their safety. Law enforcement's common sense. Politicians need to stop putting my people in danger. I'm not asking them to stop. I'm demanding that they stop. Here's what I have to say to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and anyone else stirring up the outrage about what ICE does. These are real people with real families you're hurting with your ridiculous rhetoric and inflammatory comments. And it's time to remember that.
What is Buddy's inflection that whole time?
I don't know.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, there are real people that you're hurting. These are guys with families.
Guys,
he sounds like he's going to cry.
ICE agents, they have emotions too. You wouldn't be able to tell under the masks that they wear as they scoop people off the street, but they have feelings too.
I know you can't see any of the muscles in their face move when they cover their eyes and mouth, but trust me, they might be frowning when they're dragging these people who faint in courthouses out of the courthouse.
Mm-hmm. As they're disrupting communities, as they're tearing families apart, as they're tricking people into coming to their immigration hearings.
All while wearing a gator.
These guys have feelings too, and you should take that into account.
Guys,
the next time you are preparing to tell an ICE officer to fuck off.
Yeah.
That might hurt their feelings. They might feel bad.
Next time you call an ICE officer short?
Mm-hmm. It's not fair, guys. They're trying really hard, don't
guys,
you know?
You don't understand. That's an immutable characteristic.
So I guess ICE is out here trying to the government broadly seems like they're trying to I don't know, fish for sympathy of some kind. I don't think they're going to get anything though.
But it's also I don't know. He's just biting that whole thing from cops.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even. I feel like you can't do that as a federal agent. As a federal agent, I feel like you enjoy even more protections than even a cop does.
Being
you know
an ICE
I mean?
agent, that's an immutable characteristic. You didn't choose that profession or anything.
He can't quit.
Yeah.
They can't quit their job. They can't stop kidnapping brown people off the streets.
They're protecting us.
They're taking people from their families so they can go back to theirs.
Exactly. I hate commercials.
Me too.
I hate listening to them. I hate when I hear them, whether it's on TV or on podcasts.
Grr, I just can't stand commercials. Grr.
They're the worst. And the one place you can go to avoid commercials, like this one you're listening to right now, is patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, and you get early access to our episodes, and they're all completely commercial free. No more interruptions.
And you could be one of our friends.
And that's arguably the more important point.
And, in trying times like this, friendship is what we really need.
Friendship's really important. And you can buy your way into being a friend of ours by heading over to patreon.com/intheofficepod. Again, early access to episodes, no commercials, access to all of our content before anyone else sees it. Become a patron. Anyway, moving on to travel ban news, because that is something we missed last week that was signed. It was overshadowed, though, by the Elon and Trump fallout. But we definitely got to talk about it because it's a really big deal, and it just went into effect today, Monday, June 9. So bad news.
Bad news.
More bad news for you folks. So last Wednesday, Trump issued a travel and immigration ban for more than a dozen countries. The basis for this being one, visa overstays, which is really funny to me. Because if they got approved for a visa, that means they're supposed to be here. They're good to be here. So whatever.
They just overstayed it.
And the second was the second basis for this was pretending that this will somehow prevent terrorism. That is how they talked about this. And some of the pretext for this was the Boulder, Colorado attack that happened. However, Egypt was not on the travel ban, despite the assailant being an Egyptian national. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're just doing shit.
But what if somebody from these other countries did that, though?
Exactly.
But you know what I mean? Could lightning strike twice? I mean, maybe another guy from Egypt's not going to come, but what if a guy from one of these other 12 countries comes in?
I think Egypt was probably off the list because we send them a lot of military money.
Probably.
So probably like a soft power, not even a soft power thing, just like maintaining regional dominance or whatever. But under this new travel ban, the nations with total suspended entry are Libya, Chad, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia, Equatorial Guinea, the Congo, Yemen, Iran, Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Haiti. And countries with restricted entry, so like sort of limited and has more regulations, Cuba, Venezuela, Burundi, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Laos.
Cuba, what Cuba do?
I don't know.
What did any of these other countries do? But what did Cuba do?
What they did for a lot of these countries was just get the visa overstay rate. So the percent of people that immigrate here, the percent of people that overstay their visa from these countries that immigrate here, and if it was over 25%, they got slapped on this banned list. And then there was some like terrorism consideration that got them slapped on this list as well.
Cuba.
Yeah, Cuba.
Wow. Okay.
You could Google each of the names of these countries and then U.S. intervention. And you'd find the reason that they might be politically tumultuous countries.
Well, Cuba especially.
Cuba especially. Just about every country on here. Cuba, Haiti, Yemen, like all of them on there.
Maybe we wouldn't have to worry about a travel ban from Cuba if we lifted the embargo.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. This is obviously very similar to Trump's travel ban in his first term, and that one was subject to tons and tons of legal challenges. But eventually some of it went into effect, and it hurt refugees especially.
Wasn't Trump's first travel ban like explicitly a Muslim travel ban?
Yeah.
It
targeted like Muslim countries specifically. There's a lot of protests against that. I'm guessing the protests weren't against this one because everyone was preoccupied with LA literally burning to the ground.
It's gone.
But one difference between the 2017 and 2025 versions is that this one doesn't have an end date stipulated in the executive order. The 2017 version was stipulated to last for 120 days. There were some court cases that just like never got considered because the deadline had already passed.
Yeah.
So the issue was moot and they just dropped it. This one is set for 180 days. And then after that point, the Secretary of Homeland Security, so Kristi Noem, makes recommendations for either ending it on some countries or continuing it and so on. So this just doesn't have an end date and can just be applied forever.
Okay, nice. Yeah, wow. So Kristi Noem will just keep saying for the next 3.5 years that, these guys are really dangerous.
People from Sierra Leone, scary.
So, people from Haiti.
Yeah, exactly. If this isn't challenged in court, could last for a long time, obviously. Aside from like the violence of border enforcement or ICE, as we talked about today, this is one way to stop the immigration of undesirables. And I'm kind of surprised this wasn't like challenged in court like at all. At least I didn't see anything about that.
I wonder if everyone's too preoccupied with the alien enemy stuff.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
Literally everything else that Trump's doing that's illegal and wrong.
Yeah, and some refugees and some immigrants from certain countries will be hurt more than others. The U.S. doesn't get a ton of immigrants each year from African countries, but we do get a lot from Latin America. Obviously, we're a lot closer to it. And this isn't just an immigration ban, to be clear. It's not just refusal to issue green cards. It's a total travel ban. You can't even come into the United States if you are from these countries. And for people from like, Haiti, Venezuela, especially those countries in Latin America that we intentionally destabilized, this could be deadly for them.
Just like why?
Because immigrant bad.
Immigrant bad.
Have you considered immigrant bad? Have you considered immigrant scary?
But white South Africans.
Have you considered white women? need to be protected from
that's
immigrant
right,
scary, immigrant bad.
The fickle class of people, white women and daughters. Yeah.
From the New York Times, quote, more than 300 other Haitians, mostly children, are on waiting lists for surgery and are now unable to get treatment because they are barred from traveling to the United States, said Owen Robinson, the executive director of the International Cardiac Alliance. Finding enough doctors in hospitals in other countries to make up for the sudden loss will be extraordinarily difficult. It's going to kill people. The intent of this is to kill people. It's going to kill children specifically.
And it's just for no reason. It's just because, like, Stephen Miller's xenophobic.
Yeah.
That guy really is evil.
Especially a place like Haiti.
Uh-huh.
Like, the U.S. occupied Haiti like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've been destabilizing Haiti for quite a long time.
And we've also been treating Haitian immigrants like shit for a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those were the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, were the ones that Trump accused of eating cats and dogs.
Haitian immigrants, was it Haitian immigrants that Joe Biden had, like, the cops with the whips?
Yeah. There was an influx of Haitian immigrants to the southern border, I think, in 2021, I think
so. It was early in the administration.
And yeah, they had, like, cops on horseback rounding them up. It was it's always been bad.
Yeah, looked like a picture out of a very bad time.
And all they do is come here and work. Like they don't do anything.
All they do is
anybody.
come here and act as economic boons for towns in the Midwest. That's what we're stopping.
Like, yeah, Haiti has been a place for a long time that's been very poor, in part because they were in debt to France for a long time. Because they
had to pay France because they freed themselves from slavery. Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
Yeah, Haiti's been fucked over in a lot of different ways. But it has been a politically tumultuous area for a while recently because their president was assassinated. There's been a lot of gang violence that's been happening. Of course, there's bad people everywhere. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But the people that come to the United States are explicitly looking to get away from that.
Yeah.
And you could screen them. And you could let them in.
No, they actually just want that, but here in like a bigger country where they have no power whatsoever, they want to be able to do all that.
The other one that gets me is Afghanistan on the total ban list. It's like, that's our fault.
That is our fault.
It's totally our fault.
That is
you know
our
what I mean?
fault.
We fucked that one up. Trump and Biden.
And I feel like that also is just
and Obama
implications for, I think, there were like a bunch of commitments to bring over people in Afghanistan who helped us, in our efforts over there that I think Trump didn't follow through on. Mm-hmm. I think this just explicitly just makes it so he doesn't ever have to bring over any of the translators that helped us do bad things over there, any of the regular civilians, any of the people in the Afghan army, I can't remember what it's called, that helped us out over there just to get to stay over there in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan.
Yeah, like the reason like Afghanistan would even like be in consideration for this list or just like be having a bad time politically is because of the last 4 administrations.
Yeah, it's because we lost.
It's entirely our fault. Like there is no other explanation.
Well, actually, it's because of Joe Biden's pullout. If Joe Biden would have pulled out by following Trump's plan, then maybe we'd be
things would be really different.
Things would be really different. Things would be really good over there.
Yeah. If human life isn't a concern for you though, if you need like an economic argument to give a shit about immigrants, then I'll let you know that refugees or just immigrants generally are good for the United States.
Do tell.
Yeah. So from the International Rescue Committee, quote, a 2024 study by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that from 2005 to 2019, refugees and asylees generated a net fiscal benefit of $123.8 billion to the United States government. Over this 15-year period, refugees contributed $581 billion in tax revenue, outweighing the $457.2 billion in government expenditures on them during that period, and far exceeding the cost of programs supporting them in their first few months in that country.
Once again, we have just hard facts and data, stats and figures really, that tell us that immigrants put more into the system than they take out. Mm-hmm. So why are Republicans still allowed to get away with saying that immigrants come over here and drain our tax dollars?
Mm-hmm. Even refugees are allowed in here that are of legal status. You would think that they would be like a quote unquote drain on the system because they're refugees. Yeah. They're having a hard time. But over time, they're not. It's just not true.
Interesting. Why don't the Democrats scream about this?
I don't know.
It's because we let people like Alyssa Slotkin into the party that have bought into the idea that they need to be anti-immigrant because Republicans said so.
That's one thing I forgot to mention during like the whole LA protest bit that we did. Democrats are wholly complicit in us getting to this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Where ICE is even empowered to do this. I mean, besides talking about like the Obama administration and funding ICE more and being the one to hire Tom Homan, but narratively speaking, rhetorically speaking, the Democrats have fully aided us in getting to this scenario where the government can even pretend that they're going after violent immigrants. Yes. It's just both parties failing us here.
I'm just back on Chuck Schumer's Twitter feed right now, and there's just nothing about what was happening in LA. I got a post about a march with Puerto Rico in New York from 20 hours ago. I got a post about Chuck Schumer's mom celebrating her 97th birthday. Happy fucking birthday, I guess. We got the Trump administration firing the staff of the Low-Income Home Energy Association. Nothing. There's one tweet about the Trump administration's disturbing pattern of arresting and detaining American citizens for exercising their right to free speech and protest, but nothing really explicitly about what's going on.
Brother, he got as close to martial law as he could.
Yeah.
like
that tweet was about the labor leader that got detained by ICE over this weekend.
Yeah.
Which is adjacent. But that's not really the issue at hand right now. That's not the moment. Democrats are allergic to meeting the moment, and that's why there needs to be a fundamental leadership change. Maybe Ken Martin should step down.
Yeah, maybe he really should. Anyway, to end off on this travel ban stuff, policies like the travel ban, they're extraordinarily cruel. They don't do anything to help the countries that they claim are dealing with like political violence or upheaval, and it hurts the U.S. economy as a whole. It's strictly a bad policy.
Yeah.
So
we could revitalize the Midwest with immigrants.
Yeah, we could.
Send them over here.
We could, or we could like just do anything other than brutalize people and send money to Israel.
We could just let people live who want to have like a cool life.
We could not do a military parade, which is coming up, by the way, on June 14th.
Which I cannot believe Flag Day and Trump's birthday line up so perfectly.
I mean, he gets away with it every time.
I'm saying, man, it's just, oh my God, that's the devil.
One piece of good news that we can end off on here, Kilmar Abrego Garcia did come back to the United States. So all that fear-mongering and posturing that the Trump administration did.
All the talk about, we can't possibly bring him back. I can't tell a president of a foreign country what to do, blah, blah, blah. It's out of our hands. We can't do it. It's fundamentally impossible for us to bring him back. Looks like, look what they did.
Yeah, he is, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in the United States. It's a W, but unfortunately, he is getting hit with trumped-up charges. He's being accused of trafficking migrants from the southern border in Texas further into the United States. It is good that he's back. It's good that he can have this legal fight in the United States, which is doing poorly right now in terms of holding up like liberal democracy and the rule of law, but it's certainly better than El Salvador.
I think I had seen people like Carolyn Levitt get out there and say that he's being charged with like trafficking thousands of immigrants from the southern border to bring them to like, I don't know, fucking Maryland or some shit.
To work at Home Depot.
Really, they just brought Boy back just to make up charges so that they can continue to have him detained.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah, so it is good to see him come back. This wasn't covered as much in the news, maybe because other stuff is going on, I don't know, but resistance does matter. Every little bit of resistance, I think, contributed to him eventually coming back into the United States.
Oh, absolutely. The whole Kilmar Abrego Garcia thing had massive popular support from Republicans at like the Chuck Grassley town hall. When are you gonna bring back that Kilmar, man?
Yeah, and like I haven't seen that's a banger clip. I haven't seen Democrats really celebrating this like they should be, because this is a big political win. Like, he's back in the United States.
Democrats don't want to fucking do anything.
You can say we beat Trump on this issue. Like, Trump is trying to act like a king, he's trying to act like a tyrant, oligarch, whatever you want to say. But we beat him on this issue. It's a big win.
Hakeem Jeffries can get out there and like even lie and say that it was his measured response that got him brought back.
Yeah.
Like, you could do anything, just like talk, say something, push a positive message out into the media to make people care about the issues you want them to care about.
And like, I don't know how this case against him is going to go. Like, the government might win in these allegations of human trafficking. I don't fucking know. But this is the perfect time, if Democrats want to say like, I'm glad he's back. I'm looking forward to him getting a fair trial. And then just like being okay with whatever decision is made.
Yeah, you don't have to comment on anything other than just saying, "Oh, I'm glad he's back to get a fair trial." Even though I'll comment on more about it because these are absolutely bullshit charges. But
yeah, of course.
Maybe I can understand an elected official doing something. I just wish Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, the literal party leaders, would say anything.
Yeah, because like the line that some Democrats toed that were like brave about this was that it's not about the man himself; it's about the rule of law and due process.
Yes.
Which, like, fine, I think. That's a bit of like, it's not even like nuance. It's like too many specifics. Like, you don't really need to say all of that. Like, we already know what you're saying. But now is the time that they can really do that. Yeah. I haven't seen anybody celebrating.
No, absolutely not. I do think it's a bit heartwarming, I guess, that I think this demonstrates that Trump is still afraid of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. They are still afraid of what it would mean if they violated a Supreme Court order. Mm-hmm. So that's good, at least.
Yeah, that is good that he's back in the United States.
Hopefully we get some good 7-2 decisions in the next month.
It's just evidence that like Trump can be beaten, even on issues that Democrats perceive him to be winning on.
Yeah.
Like, there is a way to do this, and if you push hard enough, especially in these controversial issues like the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you can win.
Like, we got him back. That's a massive win. You could wedge that into everything else when it comes to immigration, but we have people like Alyssa. Didn't Alyssa Slotkin say like 2 months ago, I wish Kilmar Abrego Garcia wasn't the guy, but that's what was given to us.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what she said. She said, I wish it wasn't, but that's the fight that we have.
And they're not even fighting it.
She would rather fight against California, the EV tax credits or whatever.
Exactly.
Because she's dumb and stupid.
Well, that's
Bad
her
senator.
That's her alpha male energy. Oh, you put me you served me a perfect steak. I can't eat that.
I'm just like the Detroit Lions. One other thing I want to mention is we mentioned last week Karine Jean-Pierre's book.
Corny.
It's called Independent.
Corny.
And she's writing it as like a lot of press secretaries write books after their tenure, but she's writing it specifically about the Democratic Party and how she's an independent now. But I framed it incorrectly the last time.
Okay.
I said it was a book about her breaking away from the Democratic Party. But I didn't mention, and I didn't know at the time, but okay. I know now that she's breaking away from the Democratic Party because she thought the treatment of Biden was unfair.
No fucking way, dude. There's no way.
That's the framing.
You're lying.
That's the framing.
You're lying. Wait. So we had the Jake Tapper book, and then this book get announced like within the span of. What do you mean she thought the treatment of Biden was unfair?
She thought the party turned against Biden, and now she's an independent.
I thought. No way.
Yeah, I swear to God.
I thought that the criticism was going to be that, like, oh, Karine Jean-Pierre is writing a book about her time in the administration and the book is ultimately just going to be about how she feels bad that she had to lie for 2 years. Mm. She didn't even think that she lied?
No, this is a book explicitly about how she thinks Biden wasn't treated fairly. The party turned on him. The party turned on him, and now she's an independent.
Did she think that Biden could win?
That's good, isn't it? That's it's perfect. It's perfect. It feels good for me.
You can't make that up.
Yeah.
You cannot make that up. Oh my God. An independent that's going to do what? Get a job in the next administration?
Probably. There's been a bunch of people that were a part of her staff that came out and said that she was just like horribly unorganized. She had no idea what she was doing. She would get flustered anytime she was asked a question that like wasn't in the binder that she had.
Valid.
She was just like terrible at her job.
Damn.
Apparently. So shout out. Shout out to Jean-Pierre, yeah.
Wow, what a good time. Everybody's got a book. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, I'm going to write a book about my experience on this show.
Hell yeah. Why I left the left.
Why I left the left. I just couldn't take it anymore showing up to this small, cramped studio.
Mm-hmm. The one other thing I saw in terms of like the libs this week was Ezra Klein put out a fucking opinion piece saying like abundance does have a theory of politics.
Yep.
And I was going to have a nuanced response, but all I would say is
no, it doesn't.
If John Locke could read abundance, he would off himself.
Yeah, that's real.
They're like if the liberal like theorists of old could read abundance, they would lose their minds, I think. If they knew what happened to their ideology.
It's like you guys haven't come up with any new ideas in 200 years, and in fact, you've just made our ideas worse.
You made our ideas so much worse.
You made our ideas worse.
Yeah. If Adam Smith could read this book,
Adam Smith would say things never should have got to this place in the first place. Wasn't Adam Smith like against landlords or something like that? Yeah. I was going to say Adam Smith, principled critique of the system he came up with.
Mm-hmm. So that's out there for you if you guys want to read abundance. And Ezra Klein's just like a terrible time to drop an opinion piece about abundance when there's like a fascist crackdown, damn near martial law happening in Los Angeles right now.
Occupying LA.
They're occupying LA, and you're like, guys, abundance does have a theory of power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Pete Hegseth is talking about deploying active duty Marines from Camp Pendleton into LA to deal with protesters. And Ezra Klein's over here still talking about his book. Mm-hmm. I heard Richie Torres at Welcome Fest talk about the abundance movement. Brother, it's one fucking book.
One book.
There has never been a movement that has spawned out of one book like a fucking couple months after it's released like this.
Mm-hmm. Especially a book like Abundance. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not talking like a communist manifesto kind of thing, you know?
It just like it reeks of like tech bro, but with like a politics font. We're disruptors.
It's not like Thomas Paine Common Sense. It's not Upton Sinclair The Jungle. Like it's Abundance by Ezra Klein.
It's a book that only people like you read and only people like you will read. And that's it.
Yeah, the book is being it's not quite like AstroTurf, but it feels like that from the Democratic Party, like from people like Richie Torres. It's a bunch of nonsense. Bro's out here saying like, well, you know, power on both sides is bad. There's corporate power on both sides of the climate change issue, and it's like, brother,
like, buddy, your political spectrum is not wide enough. Let me tell you,
people at Home Depot are getting snatched up right now, and you're talking about I don't know, man.
But it's also like, oh yeah, there's corporate power on both sides of the issue. I'm not going to contend with that. I'm not going to think about whether or not corporate power could be part of that issue at all. I'm going to operate within this framework.
I have nothing to say about the fact that money turns into power at all.
Yeah, wait, you guys don't understand. You keep criticizing corporations, but corporations are doing bad things on both sides. Let's figure out how we can work within this system.
Biden was treated unfairly. Anyway, to end out this episode, we got to give a beautiful special thanks.
Special, wonderful thanks to the people that keep the lights on here in this very, very,
That's right.
very nice studio. We got to give a special thanks to Caden Kraut, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Mike Chaplinsky, Kate LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Tariotari, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Newberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muggsy, Big Burrito, Cincy Elks, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutzver, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Crawfish, Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cocker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundams, Darth Father, Taylor for Content, Corey Chambers, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica, aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Murder in a Trench Coat, Casey Lynn Kelly, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Frieden, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Anna Valenic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pickman, Sir Capilot, Jeff Science, Brendan is Egg, Froggy Gumdrop,
Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Particulon, Memfrez, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Booty Snakes, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fitta Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, Cryo Bongi, Sergeant Pookie, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Noah Sajas, Maja What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6 Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, Yaya, Asura the Atheist, Aiden Reese, Deep State Agent, Puddle Pirate, Joshua Franklin, Southern Lefty, Lark 61, Just in Time 4, KC, Cannon Man, Troy H, Rark Muffalo, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon.
Thank you so much for supporting the show on Patreon. And look, folks, it's been a tumultuous time here on the Patreon recognition portion of the Hiddo team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's been a hard time.
We've been told that names have been left off. We've been told we've kicked people off that weren't supposed to in the latest purge. That was totally just and reasonable.
We waste, fraud, and abuse.
We had to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse that was going on. And look, some people are going to get caught up in that.
And that's just how it goes, folks.
If you've continued to be caught up in that, please let us know on Patreon.
And you should feel good that you were caught up in that, because you getting caught up in that means people that deserved it got caught up in it.
Exactly. You should feel patriotic in that.
Yeah, just like if a police officer accidentally shoots you, you should feel good, because that means they could have shot somebody bad.
And you should sit here and you should think like, oh, wow, this is how it feels to be kicked off. I never want this.
Exactly, 100%.
I never want this to happen. I say this also because there's one of you that DM'd us on Patreon and said you don't get a shout out on the show anymore. I verified your membership and you're right to get a shout out, and you never hit me back with a name you want to go by.
Well, that's just frankly insane.
That's frankly nuts.
Classic leftist. Nobody wants to work anymore.
And
I think I'll condemn that.
I will.
I condemn you specifically, listener. You know who you are.
Yeah, 100%. Hit us up on Patreon so we can read your fucking name.
Okay, anyway, we'll see you on Thursday.
Have a good week.